There is no surprise that the war in Gaza is dominating news headlines. The destruction of Palestinian homes and hospitals from the Israeli Defense Force is raising questions about the reasons for the war and who are the rightful owners of the region. The Palestinian region, since its inception, has had multiple rulers, including the Greeks, Romans, and the Ottomans, and the conflict in Gaza is asking the question, who does the land belong to? The region has been under control of many different cultures and civilizations throughout history, and the purpose of this video is to investigate the history of Israel and to unpack the reasons for the existence of the Israeli and Palestinian state. Let's begin with a history of the Palestinian region to see who had conquered the area throughout human history. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to call the area Palestine, which is the land depicted in this map. The Palestinian region has been conquered and fought over since the ancient world. The area is of prime importance to the Jewish people who have occupied the area since roughly 2000 BC. Jewish control of Israel is embedded in Judaism, the Jewish religion, with the land being promised to the Jewish people by Yahweh, the God of the Jews. Despite the region having successive rulers, the Jews have always believed that they are the traditional owners of the land and that the Jewish God promised the land to them. As a starting point, the Jews believe that an Israeli state fulfills the commands of Yahweh, which equips the Jewish people with a religious justification for claiming the land. Throughout the ancient periods, the Jews faced struggles and exiles under the Egyptians and Babylonians who looked to conquer the region. However, the dispersion of the Jewish people around Europe traditionally dates to the destruction of their temple in Jerusalem in 70 AD by the Roman Emperor Titus. The Jews rebelled against Roman rule and heavy taxation, leading to one of the largest Jewish conflicts in their history. The consequence was that Jews no longer had a homeland, so to speak, and they sought refuge in neighboring countries and regions to flee from this persecution. Throughout the medieval period, the region remained under the control of the Eastern Roman Empire, commonly known as the Byzantine Empire. During this time, the Jews were still allowed to practice their religion under Byzantine rule, and so at the time, the rulers of the region were Byzantines, making them the rightful rulers of the region. Right? Problem solved. Just kidding. Let's continue. Nevertheless, the Jews came under subjugation by the Islamic Caliphate, with the Muslims building the Dome of the Rock in 691 as a shrine for Islamic pilgrims. They were able to defeat the Byzantines, and the region came under Islamification under Umar ibn al-Khattab. While many Christians and Jews began converting to Islam in Palestine, the Jews were allowed to practice their own culture and religion despite Islamic and Arab rule. From the year 691 and onwards, Palestine became entrenched in the Arabic language and Arab culture, despite a small population remaining as Christians in the region. Like most of the people in the Middle East and North Africa, the people of Palestine began to describe themselves as Arabs. Palestine became entrenched in the Arabic language and, of course, Islamic culture, despite a small population remaining as Christians. Even during the reign of the Ottoman Empire, the area was still referred to as Palestine and was recognized as a home for the Palestinian Arabs. Prominent figures in the modern day, like Benjamin Netanyahu, seem to think that this justification for claiming that the land belongs to the Arabs doesn't really hold up. Instead, in Netanyahu's view, religious justifications and the fact that the Jewish people were the original occupants of the land, and that anti-Semitism could be resolved if Jews had a homeland in Palestine, seem to be much stronger reasons for the existence of the Israeli state. Once again, this is according to Mr. Netanyahu. The Arabs felt like they were hard done by when the Zionists migrated to the region in 1904 to 1914 and felt like their current occupation of the land was totally ignored by the Jews. While the Jews entered claiming that they had a right to form a Jewish state, the Palestinians saw this and felt like they were being dispossessed of their land. But in the end, who owns the land? The short answer is the country or the state that is able to rule over it. Let me explain. After all, the Egyptians, Babylonians, Greeks, and Ottomans all claimed Palestine for a particular period because they had the military might to sustain control over it. This is also called big stick ideology, where a country with a serious military capability is able to dictate terms to other countries based on the fear that its military will be used to bully a smaller country into its interests. In the context of the war in Gaza right now, Israel is the larger power with a large military, and Hamas and the Palestinians are the smaller power that are unable to compete with Israel. Now, I'm not defending the actions of Israel, who in the last month have killed roughly 10,000 people, including over 4,000 children. Nor am I saying that the Palestinians have no claim over the land. Morally speaking, I think the Palestinians should be able to claim some of the area, given that there is a society there and it's full of children and families. However, the modern Palestinian state lives next to a much greater power, being Israel, and the interests of Israel will prevail on the grounds of power alone. Take Australia, the country I live in, for example. Our indigenous population were the traditional owners of the land and existed in Australia for more than 40,000 years. There is no question that the indigenous Australians were the traditional occupiers of the land, but when the British arrived in 1788, they were able to dominate and defeat the indigenous Australians and take control of the entire country. Once again, there is a moral case to say that the colonisation of indigenous Australians was brutal, and we probably should do something to improve outcomes for indigenous Australians because the trauma passes on through generations. However, European power did prevail because it had an advanced military and advanced technologies. If Palestine had the military might and power to defeat Israel, then they would be able to claim the land as theirs. Now, this is the view of realist international scholars who believe that countries in the international arena are concerned with their own security, act in pursuit of their own national interests, and also struggle for power. In the context of the Gaza war, this is exactly what is happening right now. Both Israel and Palestine have national interests, and they seek security for the development and prosperity of their own states and their own interests. At the end of the day, international politics is a zero-sum game, and countries are often ruthless to one another in the pursuit of power. Unfortunately, when it comes to land ownership and control, the country with the largest stick rules. Once again, this is not to say that morality does come into play, but at the end of the day, the land belongs to the country that is able to operate, control, and force over it. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting. If you did, consider subscribing and liking the video for more content like this.